today's episode, we will be ending the Succession coverage with our last 5 episodes of Season 4, episodes 6 through 10. So much to get through. Let's get right into it.
Do something, man. People are questioning you. Shut up. Shut up. Okay, yep, do that. Sure, guys. Stupid and dumb. Just an idiot. Get your shit together, son. Fuck it. I loved it. Welcome to the Dub Cast.
Our first episode of this last 5 is episode 6, titled Living Plus. And this is obviously the service that Kendall is going to sell throughout the episode. So we start this one out with Logan giving an intro to Living Plus, and this was obviously recorded before he passed away. Kendall is watching this intro. Nothing really to note here, just a classic Logan scene where he's just, giving it out, dishing it to the person trying to help him prepare for it. He says the kids are useless, which, that's a big major theme throughout these last 5 episodes, and I want to circle back to I believe it's episode 2 of the season where he's like, you people are not serious figures. They're not, bro. And I don't want to, if you've seen this show so far, you know what I'm talking about, but we'll try and take it episode by episode. Don't want to go too much into the end. So Living Plus is introed. They're going to end up going through with it. So we have the Shiv and Madison connection continuing. So I believe this is a phone call. Madison does not want Living Plus. He doesn't want to go into rooms. He doesn't have to. And so he's just trying to make his way of everything as usual. He doesn't want to be bored down to the details. We know that he's very, focused on what he wants to do. He doesn't care about the little parts, and especially the moving pieces of the business. He'd rather not be bothered with that. So he doesn't want this Living Plus thing to be thrown in. They think it's another thing for the deal to potentially be tanked. He doesn't want anything to do with it, so Shiv's going to have to go to work and try and get this erased / make it a disaster so that it doesn't end up going through. So Roman and Kendall go with the idea that Madison was pushing them hard and raging at them during their interaction last episode when they didn't do the deal. And the senior board does not believe it, that being Jerry, Carl, and Frank. They didn't tell Shiv about this, of course, and shocker, she's pissed that the deal didn't work and whatever, that they were going for this angle. Another, Shiv's main fault is when she doesn't know information, she gets pissed off, and you can blame that towards her being a woman and people don't want to rope her in that much, but look at Jerry. I'm just saying. But, definitely feels bad for Shiv. She just wants to be included on things, and it just doesn't ever happen for her. So we come to find out that Shiv has actually been scheduling rooms to cry. Felt real bad for her this episode. The pregnancy is confirmed. I believe that's playing a part into it. This high-stress environment, you're trying to raise a kid, can't be the best environment for when you're pregnant. I think you become a little bit more emotional when you're pregnant. And so Tom is coming in to comfort, and then they make out. So the romance, the on and off switch continues. It's flaring off and flaring on. Obviously, I think they do deep down love each other, and it's hard times for both of them, especially Shiv. So I think they can provide comfort for each other. They know each other well. So good to see them back together in this scene, at least. So Roman is meeting with studio directors, and they're struggling due to the right lean of ATN. I believe we've seen this play out in real life with Fox News. The Fox studios and stuff kind of took a tank once people realized that Fox News is kind of leaning to the right. Obviously, it's very much implied that ATN is Fox News. So I forget the one he meets with. I believe it's maybe Robin. Could be wrong on the name, but this is her only scene, really. Roman decides to just fire her. And maybe Roman loves ATN. I believe, obviously, we saw him walk out to the or I can't say that yet, but obviously, Roman, if you had to look at him, you think he's a right-wing guy. Obviously, his dad was as well, and his dad's dream was ATN, so he wanted to fulfill that dream and keep that dream going. So he's going to protect ATN number one. That's probably his number one priority. And this woman is just in the way, so she's gone. So Kendall, no one can say no while depressing. I don't know what that means, so I'm just going to skip that. Shiv and Tom, once again, are flirting by saying how much they fucked each other up. They're playing bitey, where they bite each other on the arm, and like every time it's like we're free of weirdness in this family. It's like we have to do something where it's just odd as fuck. Like they're just biting each other. Like what are we doing, bro? I don't. Different strokes for different folks. I'll chalk that one up too. So Roman is going to have some dark thoughts about death. He thinks there's got to be another way out. Obviously, this is in connection to the Living Plus, where they essentially promise like another life after death. Jerry is pissed at him for firing Joy. Joy is the woman that Roman fired before, not Robin. Was close, but not really at all. So she tells him, "You're not your dad," and hard but cold truth. Roman has his faults too. He's too all over the place. He can never be Logan. Logan has obviously is very strict in his demeanor and very strict in his ways. Roman's kind of all over the place, especially in his personal life. He's taken a lot of stuff on in his life. It's it's bad. But guess what? Now Jerry's fired. So we have Roman just going on a firing streak, firing 2 long-term people of the company. He already fired Jerry in the first part of the season, but I guess didn't really go through due to the untimely death of Logan. Now she's fired for sure. And yeah, not great from Roman. I still think that Jerry's a very important part of the business. I think firing her on a whim is just not cool. I don't know. I didn't love this from him. It seems like he's kind of got his back against the wall and is trying to go on a power trip and fire people. Kendall does back this decision, though. He wants as many people out as possible, too. He wants the room to be clear so him and Roman can really make decisions, a.k.a. Kendall can really make decisions. But that's the dynamic playing out there. Tom and Shiv are now back together. Tom tells her the truth about why he did what he did, and you got to give respect to Tom, bro. I mean, I've hated on Tom a lot throughout this watch of the show, but at the end of the day, he's always tried to tell the truth to Shiv. He says money is really important. We saw in season 3, he was saying, I've never seen Logan get fucked. He just tries to pick the right boat to stay in. And, Shiv, it's not like Shiv was like down bad for him or cared a lot for him. I mean, she obviously cared a lot for him, but it wasn't very shown. And we see Tom and Shiv talk, and it's mostly Tom talking. Shiv's on her phone, doesn't give a fuck. So it's like, you can't have your cake and eat it too, Shiv. Like, you got to show you care as well. So, I'm seeing the Tom vision, bro. And ever since he made that move at the end of season 3, I'm seeing the vision. I understand Tom's character a lot better. So, Kendall, they're going in front of this meeting for the Living Plus. I believe it's like a shareholders event as well. Trying to show off new services for the company before the big deal board meeting. So Kendall's going to bully Pete, the numbers guy, into bullshitting the numbers and gets a half-hearted commitment to make the argument for bullshitting their numbers. This is all just a tactic to get the plan off. Obviously very immoral to bullshit the numbers of your company in a legal/business situation where there's going to be an acquisition, but they're trying everything at this point to get out because they can't refuse the deal due to Mattson raising it. So Kendall, as usually as his plans go, for an event, it's just a disaster. He wants fake clouds. It's just all of his setup. He just always goes way too deep into it, thinks about it way too much. But the fake clouds, he doesn't like them. I don't know. It's just too much for just a common meeting, but we will talk about how the event actually ends up going. But Roman and Shiv find out about the fake numbers being fluffed. They didn't know about that before. And we get a nice little To the Moon reference. I know this released in 2023, so funny to see that reference play out from 2020. Dogecoin to the moon, GameStop to the moon, during the whole during the whole stocks scandal of 2021, I think. So Shiv's pushing Kendall to stop the gleam in his eye, and when Kendall has this gleam in his eye, it can be bad, but it can also be good, as we see play out here. I thought he did a good job, and I think he's well recognized for his performance, but let's get into it. So he's supposed to go on with Roman right before, but of course Roman abandons him to the speech by himself, and Roman doesn't seem excited about it, trying to make a business decision. I think someone told him to not do it. And maybe he's smart to not do that because I don't think Roman really has the chops for public speaking, but we'll get into that into a later episode. Right before Kendall's going on stage, Carl confronts him about the numbers in his speech, pretty harsh. We never really see this harsh of a Carl. Carl, as CFO, believes it's his fiduciary responsibility to uphold the truth and be a good legal, moral businessman. And I will give something to Kendall here. It feels like Logan never really did that. I mean, shades of him in the board meeting in season 1 when he wouldn't leave the room and just basically forced that vote to be of no confidence to fall. So, sometimes when it's a family business, things aren't always by the book. But this was a pretty good job by Carl to strike fear into him. I was scared as a Team Kendall guy. I was worried that Carl was actually going to do something and get him. Harsh Carl is a person not to mess around with for sure. So Kendall, at the beginning of his speech, has a nervous breakdown. He's reading off the teleprompter. He's talking to his dad on the video through like Zoom. It's kind of one of those like holograph deals. Obviously, we saw the video at the beginning of the episode of Logan talking about Living Plus, but now he's talking to his dad through Living Plus. But it turns out the crowd actually liked this. I thought the dynamic was off. I think that's the vibe we're supposed to get. But people in tech love everything, so I think they actually end up liking it. Greg's little arc through this episode is getting someone to edit Logan's speech, saying double the earnings through Living Plus. They had to change around the wording. Greg pulls some power strings and actually bullies the guy into just changing this. So we see that play out on stage as well. So good job by Greg. Not good for Kendall. Carl's going to be pissed about the double the earnings thing, but this doesn't really come up again. So I think Kendall does a good enough job, as I've said a couple of times now. Right as Kendall's wrapping up his decent performance, Mattson makes a bad tweet about Nazis and something about Kendall and Nazis. Bro, this Mattson guy's unhinged. It's like every time he's off screen, he's way more of a menace than on screen. I mean, on screen he's a menace too with the blood and everything, but it's like when he's off screen and doing on his own like behalf, it's just odd. He's just doing weird shit. Like, why would you tweet about the Nazis, bro? I don't know. Not a big Mattson guy. I don't think we're supposed to be. He's kind of the antagonist of this last season. So Kendall kind of handles the situation well. No one really briefs him on it, but he figures out what's happening and then makes a decent response. So we see that Kendall actually has the capability to be a somewhat solid CEO, in my opinion. I think he could uphold this business pretty well. I think he could do a decent job. Mattson ends up deleting the tweet. Now everyone's fake nice to Kendall. Roman's pissed that he didn't do it. So Shiv was the one who ended up telling him not to do it at the last second. And yeah, he's upset with Shiv because Roman's clout could have gone up, his stock could have gone up if he did this performance. And did it with Kendall, but he was swayed by Shiv ultimately. Obviously, he probably trusts Shiv more than he trusts Kendall, but wasn't the right move for him. Should have went out on stage with your brother, man. Could have been the next Elon Musk, Roman Musk, but alas, he did not. So Roman keeps playing the video of his dad saying that he's a micro dick and gets it wrong from, this is like a text from Kendall. This was a really weird scene looking back on it. I guess, Roman obviously has a very troubled past and has a weird thing with sexuality. So this probably like makes him feel good about himself, or obviously it's giving him some sort of relief or something. I don't know. Just another classic Roman, what are we even doing here scene, but we are supposed to understand that he's just an oddball, and obviously that's been very portrayed throughout these 4 seasons. So the last scene of this episode is Kendall. He's fucking around in the water at the end. At first I didn't know what that was supposed to be, but my good people on TV time told me, or not told me, but I read, every time we see Kendall in the water, last season he was about to commit suicide. In season 1 he was about to die through the car crash. Now he can actually swim in the water peacefully. He's at bliss. He can swim freely, so that's a little signifying behind that. So awesome episode here. I'm gonna have no complaints about these last episodes. This last season was awesome. So as always, I'll give a favorite and least favorite character. So favorite character of this episode, my boy Team Kendall. Had a lot of tough conversations and doubters for his vision, but it ended up being right, and he killed it at the end of it. So good job, Kendall. Favorite of the episode. Least favorite, I'm going to have to give to Roman. He was off his game this episode, even for Roman standards. Something got to him this episode. I don't know what it could possibly have been. Maybe a little bit of a power trip, just things happening the wrong way for him. He acted weird with Joy and Jerry, and he's maybe just too power hungry going on a power trip. I don't know. Also being convinced by Shiv to not do the launch wasn't great for his brand. So no real solid actions for Roman this episode. So least favorite goes to Roman, favorite goes to Kendall for episode 6. Episode 7 is titled Tailgate Party, and this one takes place in Tom's place right before the election. They have a little tailgate party that Logan used to host, so that's the main focus of this one. So starting this one off, we have Tom and Shiv. They're trying to get the image across that they had a break, but they're back. Obviously, they need to keep public appearances for everybody. Tom gets her a little gift. She opens it up, and what is it? It's a scorpion. Odd choice, but I like the vision, Tom. Why not? Get a little scorpion. I think it was dead, but Tom clearly, throwback to season 1, has struggles getting gifts. Not even sure he needed to get a gift for Shiv for them getting back together, but here we are. It's a scorpion. He says he gives it to her because I love you, but you kill me and I kill you. Sort of just a WTF moment, but it's Succession, so what do you expect? So Tom and Shiv have mended fences. The scorpion will make an appearance later. I'm not sure if it I wrote it down or not, but they do mention it later. So ahead of the election, Rava lets Kendall know that their daughter Sophie is having an issue with ATN. There's an incident, I guess, with a kid at school. Obviously, Sophie is not white. She is, I don't know what race she is, so I don't want to speak improperly, but she's not white. Obviously, the ATN people are white supremacists, not ATN people, but the Mencken supporters are basically it's all the super far right racist people. So Sophie, I guess, had an issue at school. And yeah, this is tough to see for Kendall. I feel like he didn't handle it the best. He says, all my work is for them. Cap, it's all for you. You want to be the face of the company. Just admit that. You want to be like your dad. You want to fill his shoes. I wish we got to see more of Kendall with his kids. It seems to be like his really rock in his life. The only thing keeping him from going insane. And obviously he had a tough break with Rava. But yeah, this is just a tough scene for Team Kendall, man. He says that the work's for them, but is it though? I mean, maybe some of it, but it's like, go spend time with them. You could have got out of this company like 5 times by now if you wanted to, and I'll leave it there. So the siblings are all meeting. Logan's funeral has yet to take place 4 episodes later. Obviously, the events of the season are going by basically day by day, so that makes sense. They want to know who will speak at the funeral. Connor says that he's jumping on the digital battle bus, which is just a funny thing to say. Fortnite reference, here we go. They want to bring in Nate now to bring in some political opposition to Mattson and ATN. Obviously, he's on the other side. So they're trying to work out a deal. Well, not opposite of ATN. They're trying to work out a deal for either to work with Mencken or to work with Jimenez, I believe the other person's name is. So they're keeping their options open. Right now, they don't want to go with Mencken. They think Jimenez might win. So Nate is obviously working with him and Gil. So guess I thought I'd never fucking see Nate again, but he just keeps reappearing. So even in the last couple episodes, Nate is still here. Shiv makes the call to Lucas for a heads up. So now Lucas needs to come down to this tailgate party because there's going to be a Jimenez rep there, and there's going to be Mencken people. So he's got to make face, be in rooms that he doesn't want to go, and it's not going to be pretty, but he ends up doing a decent job. So of course Shiv's still on the wagon there for Mattson, lets him know immediately. What are you going to do? Just seems like they're on their side, and that's it. So Greg has been assigned the role of firing people on Zoom, ATN people. They bring him all into a room, and he's like, hey, he reads them out the contract. Seems like he kind of likes it. He mentions later that he does like firing people on Zoom. It's good for him because he has power, and his power just seemingly increases and increases. And, at the end of the day, Greg, I think, is one of the best displays of how to move your way up slowly and surely. He holds his cards tight to his chest. He always picks the best side. So props to Greg. Now he's firing hundreds of people on Zoom. It's funny. I think this is a spoof on when people were getting fired over Zoom in the COVID pandemic, and they're all just like, "What? Hey!" And he's like, "All right, that'll be it for now. See you later." Turns the computer off, and that's it. There's nothing they can do because they're all on over the internet. So funny Greg scene. Now Tom and Greg are gonna plan. They want to be Team Kenro, Kendall and Roman, the Dumpster Brothers. It doesn't really matter. I don't think. I think they're just scheming. They're going to pick the side that wins ultimately. As right now, they think it's Kendall and Roman due to the political connections and their ability to maneuver this situation so far. It looks like the deal at this point is teetering, so it may not go through. So they're starting to put their feelers out with them to figure out how to latch onto their side. So Roman has been tasked with asking Connor to drop out of the race to get Mencken more percentages. I guess the 1% that Connor has is really important for Mencken's percentage. He says, I'll get the libtards, you get the Nazis, pretty much. I mean, it's just, well, he says that to Kendall. That's the two sides we're here with in America and here with, no, not in America now, but in this theoretical political battle. You have the right side, they're calling the Nazis, and then the libtards, left side. You know, they don't care. It doesn't even matter. They just want to be with who wins, and what they want them to reward them. The person who wins to reward them with a good thing on their deal to maybe get rid of it. So it doesn't really matter. They're just making friends with all sides, which is smart. So Nate and Tom obviously had the awkward interaction at Tom and Shiv's wedding in season 1. They are reunited, and it's awkward as ever. Tom's not as mean this time. I think he's, grown up a bit. He's gotten over it, especially since maybe he's had some other interactions on his own. But it's funny to see these two have another interaction. So Mattson walks in during the moment of silence for Logan. Of course, of all the times to walk in, he chooses now to walk in. Everyone's shocked, especially the brothers. They didn't expect him to be here, but they still want to tank him. Shiv's going along with it for now. And Mattson has seen Greg, calls him Gary. Funny scene. Greg, he's always on people's minds, but it doesn't even matter if he has the name right. He's still popping up in people's minds. That's good. Potentially, if Mattson were to take over, Greg could be top of mind, So, just funny that he calls him Gary, though, because he's not really that relevant. So Connor, he's going to do his own little bidding here. He's not just going to drop out on a whim. He also wants to negotiate for a position. He wants to be in Europe. And good for Connor, get something out of this. Or it looks like you're just going to get 1%, be done. But now he may have a side. If Mencken wins, he may have a place to go in Europe and have a job. He's always been interested in politics, apparently. So maybe Connor's a big winner out of this whole show, looking back on it, But we'll talk about that later on. So Mattson is introduced to Nate with Shiv there. Tom is potentially out at ATN, according to Lucas. He kind of sort of drops this as a little thing because they need to switch up the ATN perspective. It's going badly right now. And yeah, Shiv doesn't say no, but she doesn't say yes. So of course this is going to come up later. But what is, Tom doesn't do anything bad, really. I mean, next episode you can have your qualms, but it's like, he seems like a decent guy at ATN. He hasn't really screwed the pooch that much. I mean, I know it's Tom. He's kind of a doofus, but it's like, what has he done to be fired, man? That's kind of wrong. But maybe he didn't pass the test. He wasn't on the kill list, so maybe something changed. I don't know. It just seems like a weird... Sorry, one sec. Okay, we're back. Sorry, watch is bugging. Why fire Tom, bro? I don't know. But, of course, this is going to get back to Tom eventually. So Kendall is pitching Nate. I didn't know that they had a history. Maybe, I think Nate and Shiv used to date, so maybe they knew each other through that. But they chop it up like old bros. But, business comes to business. Ultimately, they're both going to do what's best for themselves. Obviously, it's Succession. They don't give a shit about each other, really. It's just what is the best deal for them. So Shiv is working with Mattson. Obviously, she's been scheming this whole time, and she asks him for a very, very, very favorable position with him. And, I thought this would be assumed with her help, and, Mattson is not really the type to say things, but he seems okay to the idea, maybe this will work, maybe this won't work. I don't know. I don't know if I'd trust Mattson. I think I'd latch my vote to the brothers, to be honest. Just obviously... Well, I know it happens at the end of the show, but I'm saying, like, before this, it seems like he's not really the most trustworthy guy. He's had some weird things happen in his life, and it seems like he can kind of just switch on the drop of a hat and be all weird and stuff. So, not sure I would be on that side of things, but Shiv's made her bed, so now she has to lay in it. Nate drops out of the combo with Kendall. He's just seen enough. He heard the pitch. He's done. He's ready to move on to something else. Make his rounds. Not great sign for Kendall. So Mattson and Iba have an incident at the party. This isn't going to develop great. Obviously, they have a checkered history, and they have it seems like almost a screaming match with Mattson being like, "Ebba, blah blah blah. Why'd you say this?" just awkward stuff. Can't believe Shiv is, maybe thinking of banging this guy. Anyways, she tells them about India, Iba, about them. They've basically been faking subscriber numbers in India. This is not a good look for Mattson. They go to Shiv, and Shiv is. It's not a great look. Shiv is gonna have to PR it out, but yeah, this throws a wrench in things for sure. We thought Mattson was clean. We thought Gojo was clean, but they do have some skeletons in the closet as well. This could come to light, especially now that the brothers know it. It's not great. The brothers do a good job talking to Iba and getting this information out of her pretty easily. So, yeah, this is going to be another domino that needs to fall before this eventual deal gets made. So Shiv realizes the situation might be fucked, of course, and she says, "You can fix it, though." And Mattson says, "Fuck me." Mattson says, "You can fix it, though." And Shiv says, "Fuck me." Maybe the writing's on the wall. Maybe you should have been with the people that you grew up with your whole life, but none of you can get on the same page. Oh. Jerry is back at this party, of course, because she's just involved in everything. She is out, but she wants money and threatens with blackmail. I could have gotten you there, but nope. Obviously referencing the little pictures that Roman sent to her, and she always just has this freaking Joker / King card, like whatever she wants. She can just blackmail the hell out of Roman, because there are definitely skeletons in that closet as well, and Roman could be in serious trouble if this information ever gets out. So Roman, after this, freaks out at Connor and Willa, because now Connor has decided he wants to stay in the race with Willa, and shout out to Willa. She's very supporting of Connor in this journey. Even though they're at 1%, it's like she supports him, and I'd love to see it. So good job for Willa and Connor. They're going to stay their ground for now, but obviously that's not going to last. Kendall and Mattson end up, of course, being in the same room for a while. They're going to get to a confrontation eventually. The notable quote here from Mattson is saying, "Your numbers are gay." What does that even mean? This is just not going to end well with these three, counting Roman, just hotheads all at each other's necks. So obviously this is going to be very turbulent heading into the last couple episodes. But the main scene of this episode happens here with Tom and Shiv. So Tom, they're on the balcony. Tom starts to hear that he'll be, quote, shit canned, and he's upset with Shiv. He wants to, quote, clear the air with her. He says, "You shouldn't have married me." Shiv says to him, "You shouldn't have married me." She was at her lowest point when he proposed to her, which, yeah, that is weird, Tom. I will say that was a point, Shiv. And I called that shit out in season 1. Go back to my review. I said that's a fucking horrible time. I mean, obviously it's horrible, but it's like, what are we doing, Tom? But Shiv says she's fucking you for your DNA. I don't know about that. He does love you a lot. What are you fucking him for? It's like, you got to turn the tables here. She says, "You betrayed me," which is true, but he had good reason to do it. I'm Team Tom on this, bro. It's like Shiv doesn't show him shit. She's like, now all of a sudden she wants to do everything and whatever. It's like, the whole reason why Tom did that in season 3 was because of all this build up and all this stuff we see play out. It's like, you fucked the actor, you fucked Nate. What, like, you want on the night of the wedding, you ask for everything that Tom said in the boat in season 3. It's like, it's all adding up, bro. And I respect Tom for his decision at this season 3. He's on his own journey now. So I will give her points for like the proposal stuff, but it's like, she makes decent points, but it's like, I agree with Tom, man. He's like, you let me go to jail. She has too big a sense of self. I agree. Obviously, she has issues being in the patriarchy or whatever, being a woman, but it's like every time something happens, you think like it's all about you. And, we saw at the wake or whatever, the other episode, that you were freaking out that, something didn't go your way. It's like every time something doesn't go your way, it's bad and capable of love. I agree with that. We saw 3 seasons of that. Not a good person to have children. I agree with that too. It's like, bro, she's not a good person. It's none of the Roys are good people. It's obvious. So Tom's just spitting truth, bro. I'm Team Tom. It's like, it's the tough truth, because these are our people we believe are our protagonists, but it's like they're all very faulted, and Shiv is not innocent of anything, So Tom, I was like, Tom's making some good points here. He says that or Shiv says that Tom took Logan's last 6 months with her. Come on. Shiv never got Tom's approval because he's right, not his fault. Um, he gives her endless approval but doesn't fill her because she's broken. Shiv doesn't like or care about him. True, and he finishes it off with "You don't deserve me." W Tom, bro. Everything he said was facts. Like, what did he say that was wrong? It's like Shiv. All of this, I was so happy when Tom broke his shit down for her in season 3 on the boat and said, you know what if blah 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 blah. I don't remember the exact quotes. He did it again here, bro, and it's like he made his decisions because you were like aloof. You didn't love him. You never showed signs. Every time I saw you guys talking in season 1 or 2, you're on your phone, not listening to what he had to say. You cut the honeymoon off early to go to the thing. On the wedding night, you're not even want to interact with him. Like, the only way that you want to have sex with him is being like, I am better than you. So Tom is spitting facts, bro, and now like the only thing he wanted was a kid, and you're gonna gatekeep it from him and not tell him. It's like, wow, this was a crazy scene. Obviously, Emmys for everyone all around. Amazing acting by Shiv and Tom's actor and actress. Just crazy scene, but I'm on Team Tom, bro. I mean, I don't know if that's wrong, but I'm Team Tom, bro. It's like, he's spitting facts. I've been preaching about this on all my reviews. Something was up with this relationship. Shiv doesn't give a fuck about him. It's like, what was she even in it for? So, yeah, awesome scene, great acting, and what a way to leave us off in this episode, except there's more. So Kendall is trying to rally the troops, talking to Frank. He says we need a reverse Viking. They need to find major issues, which there are some out there, the India issues. So Frank, obviously playing the middle. We'll see what happens, but Kendall's rallying the troops. Roman has decided he's going to take the speaking spot at the funeral. At the time, I thought this was probably for the best. You know, Roman probably cared the most about his dad, besides maybe Connor. Obviously, Connor's not really relevant. So, of the 3, Shiv and Kendall both were beefing with him right before he passed. So I feel like Roman was the good one for now. He was on Logan's side for most of the show, besides Kendall and Shiv really weren't. So we'll see how that goes. Obviously, we'll talk about it. So, stacked episode 7. Time to get to the favorite and least favorite. Favorite, Tom. Good job, buddy. Finally got all he needed to say out. I thought maybe he was going to do it in season 3, but he left some stuff. Now he's out there. He did some of this stuff before, but this was the moment he needed to, and I'm glad he's truly woken up for himself and is valuing himself over Shiv and not just simping endlessly. He's looking out for his own path. So favorite goes to Tom. Least favorite goes to Shiv. Working with Madison has taken a major stock hit as of this episode. The Indian numbers are fake. Now she's arguing with Tom. I didn't like a lot of her points in the argument. Seems like she's at a bad spot right now for the end. Didn't really see how this last 3 episodes could change things. It seems like she's down on her luck and everything. So favorite going to Tom. Least favorite going to Shiv for episode 7. Episode 8 is titled America Decides, and what another banger we have here. This one taking place during the election between Mencken and Jimenez. So, as I mentioned, we started off, it's election day. Tom is stressed. Greg's feeling good, though. So, Tom is wondering about his dress shoes. He's not wondering about his dress shoes. Someone comes up to him and is like, hey, you probably shouldn't wear dress shoes. You probably wear like little comfy sneakers. Sid used to always wear those. You might be, feet might be hurting after standing on your feet all night in dress shoes. He asked about adult diapers. Bro, you have 2 minutes to go to the bathroom. Come on, you're overreacting, Tom. Let's get to the program here. You got an election to run on ATN. So, turns out the night before the election, Greg was hanging out with Mattson. He heard about the alliance between Shiv and Mattson. Shiv is in contact with Mattson and Nate. So, Greg, as always, somehow finds the most interesting information and is going to hold it tight to his chest and use it to the best of his ability and figure out where he can use it to get to the place he wants to get to. It's just funny that Greg ends up being the one to hang out with Mattson. It kind of makes sense, both young guys want to go out, hang out. I think they were having drinks for a while and they just have popped up, and Mattson was going through a bunch of business strategy, but I'm not sure if that's the best idea. Obviously, he's very carefree. Don't know if he realizes Greg's allegiances, or maybe he just trusts Greg now, but we'll see what happens with that. So, in order to alleviate the pressure that is on Sophie, Kendall orders his SUV to follow them. And maybe you should tell them that, Kendall, because they call him and are freaking out. It's like, bro, they had she already had an incident. She's tweaking out, and now there's a SUV following them everywhere they go, and they don't know about it. Why'd you not tell them about it, or had Jess call, or something? Like, give them a heads up. It's like, what are we doing, bro? It just, I don't. Kendall, sometimes I love him, but it's like sometimes like it's like, dude, like, I know it's hard for him to be in real life because he's so rich and has never had to be on the streets or whatever. But it's like, dude, come on, man. It's just this whole storyline with the kids is just really sad. So ATN is deciding not to cover the intimidation being done by the right side. Nate wants him to cover it. Obviously, he's on the left side. He's bidding for that to be done at ATN. It's a whole battle here because obviously ATN is right-leaning, but they don't want to show the right voters potentially intimidating voters on the left or voters on the whatever. So, this isn't good for a media company to be covering up active news stories, especially when I think it was leading on all the other news stations. So tough decisions already for Tom and the ATN crew, but ultimately they're just going to keep deciding not to show it. So Roman and Mencken Mencken makes a phone call to Roman. He wants to be covered favorably. If he loses, he doesn't want to just be the loser of this presidential election. He wants to also be in the next presidential election. So if he loses, he wants to make sure that ATN fan base is still there. Smart move by Mencken. I think Mencken plays ATN like a fiddle, bro. Like, he doesn't even need to say anything. I mean, obviously he has Roman in his corner backing him no matter what, but it's like, damn, like, he's kind of, he obviously he's a politician, so he's slimy, he knows what he's doing, but it's like, he kind of thought of everything through and, made sure this plan was going to be good. So good for Mencken here, making this phone call to Roman, making sure everything's connected, even if he wins or loses. So, Tom is in need of a coffee, and of course he's going to ask Greg, but Greg doesn't do coffee anymore, but Tom needs it. So Greg is eventually convinced to do it. He gives Greg Coke. Tom peer pressure Greg into doing Coke. It's like, dude, this is the most important night of your life. You want to be on drugs? I guess. Like, I don't know if I'd choose Coke as a drug of choice. I don't know what Coke feels like. I've never done it, but I don't know. Adderall, maybe? I don't know. I've never even done Adderall, so I guess I can't be the right one to give it the drug of choice, but it's like, I don't know, maybe just don't do drugs. I go to work every day, I don't do drugs, and I work very hard and I'm focused all the time, so maybe just don't do drugs. So tonight Greg has to be Greg for Tom, and unfortunately Greg is still relegated to that position, and that's at this point in the show. Albeit though, coming from the guy who puked in the mascot in episode 1 and was about to be fired of everything and had no money, now he's really made a good name for himself. So all being said, one more night of Gregging for Tom can't be the worst thing in the world. So Connor makes a phone call to Tom. He wants to be featured on ATN. He's trying to pull the family string. He's get on the family network. Just not going to happen. Tom's like, maybe we'll fit you in here. Connor ends up losing Kentucky. That was the one they were keeping their eyes on. Maybe they thought they could win that one. And I can't remember the last time. Well, I've only really been alive for like 6 elections or something. But I feel like a third party never wins at just one state. They usually don't even have like 5%, so that just seemed like a long shot anyway. But tough for Connor. This campaign didn't go as well as he thought it would. Should have read the room. Didn't really seem like he had support, but getting 1% is actually pretty good. All things considered, like on a serious note, that's not that bad. So moral success for Connor, I think, on this race, and we'll talk about how it ends in a second. So interesting, roll back the curtain here. The touchscreen isn't working on the show. They're trying to do the Steve, whatever his name is, projections with the buttons and get the states to who, but the touchscreen isn't working. So Tom's freaking out. Kendall's freaking out. Where's the touchscreen? Where's the touchscreen? They have 3 ready to go. They got to get one in there. It's bad, but in the grand scheme of things, it probably doesn't even matter that much. I mean, it matters a little bit, but if they're able to get one there in like the next couple minutes, it doesn't matter that much. So there's a fire now at a voting center, and that's not being covered at ATN either. So it's like, what are you guys covering? It's just like people voting and states getting their votes in. Get these stories in. These are important stories that could shape the future of democracy, but they don't show it. Obviously losing a lot of credibility fast, and I don't think it ends up mattering because they're legacy media and they're Roy's and Waystar Royco, but it's like, this should have lost them a lot of credibility, especially not covering the intimidation in this now. So the inner battle that takes place during this episode is Shiv versus Roman, both pushing for their separate candidates. Obviously, Shiv is very liberal. Roman is very conservative. So Roman being friends with Mencken is pushing for him heavy, and Shiv just thinks that Menken's going to be like horrible and be like a dictator and turn everything bad. So she wants Jimenez, and that kind of plays out pseudo in every argument they have in the future of this episode. And Kendall's ultimately the man in the middle who has to make the decision. So Shiv, obviously being at ATN and being around the center of the election, is going to run into Tom, so she apologizes. She tries to use the father dying excuse. In my opinion, I just don't love it. You know, you and Logan were at odds when he died. It's like this wasn't really the best time to use this excuse. It's been a couple days, and you know, maybe the pregnancy one would be better. Just didn't seem like that was the best time to use it. Seems convenient, but Shiv tells him now that she's pregnant. Is that even true? You know, Tom's wondering. It's like, goddamn, like tell her. He says, is that a new tactic? And this is just a tough scene to watch because Shiv's being honest, opening up, trying to say, you know, you're the father of my kid. I mean, hopefully he is. But it's like he doesn't believe her because she's been capping and has been lying the whole show and not telling her the truth. So it's just a tough scene to watch for. I mean, not just watch because these two have just been at odds, and it's just like the relationship, their dynamic is just so. It's just hard to watch, man. Connor makes a call back to Roman after realizing he's probably going to lose. Yeah, let's start talking about that position in Lithuania or whatever. So good for Connor. As mentioned last episode, hopefully he cashes out. So they have a debate on what to do with the fire to the ballots. Roman wants to call the state for Mencken, even though the votes haven't been counted yet. Shiv doesn't want to call it yet. Obviously, the votes will try and recount or do a runoff or something. Kendall's in the middle, so as I mentioned before, both sides sort of playing out. Roman just wants his guy to win. Shiv wants her guy to still be in the race, and there'll be a potential for him to win. So this is kind of a spoof on the mail-in ballots, I think. I don't know if there was an incident in the 2020 election with mail-in ballots and someone calling a state early, but if there was, then this is just directly spoofing that. If not, this is probably like what if could have happened. So Roman goes to Ravenhead and makes him go off about Mencken. You know, I don't know what this was supposed to be. I mean, just another hype for Mencken to get some rallying votes at the last second. I don't know. Shiv and Greg have a side talk. Shiv is just really odd in this conversation. She says, "Do you find me attractive, Gregory?" She says, "Don't fuck me." And when he asks for something in return, she's like, "No." And this is terrible negotiating, Shiv. It's like, you got to give the guy something in order to get something, you know? It's Greg. He's a fucking player in this game. Have you seen him around your family for the last, 17 months? It's like, he knows what he's doing, bro. He's not just going to do anything for you for free. And we see this blowing up in her face later. It's like, Shiv is not good at making a deal. She's way too self-centered, as mentioned by Tom before. She's not thinking about the big picture. You got to make deals to get, you know, you can't just have everything handed to you. You have to go out there and scrap. You got to give something to get something, Shiv. And she came off way too icy, way too aggressive in this interaction. If I was Greg, I'd do the same thing he did. So Roman is forcing the deal to be blown up by pushing Mencken. He gets the guy on the phone to agree that they're going to blow up the deal if Mencken's elected president. So obviously not word from Mencken directly, but that's the word on the street, and we'll see how that one plays out, buddy. Not good. So Greg was eating wasabi in the side room, and he got it in Darwin's eyes. Darwin's kind of this main player at ATN. He's the main coordinator for the election night stuff. And was this a Shiv play? Did he directly try and get Darwin out of there so they could, you know, I don't think so, though, because I think Darwin was actually leaning more towards Shiv's side and not calling it. But Darwin's kind of out of the picture now because he has wasabi in his eye, at least for the moment. So back to Connor. He will resign his bid in support of Mencken. Only in his way. He has to blame his former running mates. He has to go off on a rampage about the country. Not sure how effective this would have been to get people to vote for Mencken. He does mention that he will be supporting Mencken, but it's just a classic Connor rant, like that first one he did when he was becoming president. It's just like, this is too much for the country, bro. You know, not the best way to go about it, but he does do it, so he will get that position from Mencken, hopefully. So now they need to revisit Wisconsin because the vote's getting really close. Kendall's having very reserved thoughts. He doesn't want to call it yet. But the way that they have it set up is Arizona's done and is going to Mencken. So if they call Arizona, which it's already been called for Mencken, then they have to say that Mencken won the whole thing because they called Wisconsin early for him already. Kendall and Shiv are gonna have a talk. He tells her about his plan to run alone, to become the CEO of the company. Mencken is Roman's guy. That worries him, and he wants to get something from Nate to block the deal as well because they have that from Mencken. Shiv is like, okay, I'll go do that for you. Calls a fake number. Fuck you, Shiv. Just never on the like. Ugh. It's just so tragic that these three can never get on the same page, and I know that's a huge theme of the show. It's like we gotta say it though. It's just if they could ever all be like, if one of them for 1 second could be like, I will take a step down for you to take a step up, so we could be in this together. This show would be over in season one. This show would be over in the first episode. But no, it's like they always have to go back and forth, and they're so selfish, and they're such bad people that it's like, well, they're not such bad people, but they're not great people. It's like one has to think they're winning the deal. It's like, just come on. But Shiv is not going to call the number for Nate. Of course, she's in with Mattson, and Kendall's going to take a step outside. He talks to Greg, and he finds out everything. She didn't speak to Nate, and she's in with Mattson. So Rat has been exposed. The leak has been extinguished. It's over now. The siblings are at war. Shiv is just fighting a losing battle. Roman's mocking her. Kendall's pissed. And they give the official call for Mencken. You can easily see why Kendall swung the way he did. It's just everything added up that Shiv is like screwing them over. So why would he not call it for Mencken? In the moment, it's obviously the heat of the moment. He's not some crazy like thinker. He's just like, Shiv screwed me, so now I'm gonna screw her. That's the whole mindset of this family. So Mencken has been called by ATM to be the president. Greg has a moment with Jess. Kind of cool to see this. He's like, we're about to call it for Mencken, and should I do it? Should I not do it? And she's like, I don't know. It's pretty cool that you're going to be announcing the president of the United States. So that's cool to see like the kind of behind the scenes there. Mencken gives his victory speech while the world watches as this episode winds down. Shiv calls Mattson and says, we're going to do a number on them. Obviously pissed off. Things didn't go her way. And Kendall, to his driver, Fikret, says some people just can't cut a deal. And that's true. Shiv couldn't do shit. She couldn't get Nate to cut the deal because she's already in with Mattson. She couldn't get a deal with Greg, and Greg tells. So, Kendall, ironically, I don't think he knew what he was saying, really, because he didn't know the deep details. But he's right. Shiv couldn't cut a deal, and that's it. She lost now. She's out of the presidential race. Mencken has won, technically, by ATN's call. So yeah, not good for Shiv. So, favorite of this episode, I'm giving it to my boy Kendall. He at least caught Shiv in her mismanagement of her efforts. Obviously, Roman is boys with Mencken, but he can still kill the deal if Mencken does go through with that, which is what they need for now. A lot of real-world consequences in this for Kendall with his kids. He handled it mostly with grace. He did the best he could. He ultimately had to make the decision to say fuck Shiv because she fucked him over. So, simple math, give it to Kendall. I can't give it to Roman. None of the other characters really played a bigger part. Least favorite, Shiv. I mean, I think at this point she's running away with the most least favorites. I thought she was going to be the winner of this thing, but it's really just looking bad. Once again, her schemes blow up in her face, and her stock is all the way down at the end of this episode, even worse than last episode. This wasn't a great episode to pick a least favorite because everyone's kind of doing their own thing, but she just keeps falling into the same traps and is not going to be at this point I ruled her out. It's like she's not gonna win this. So my favorite of episode 8 is Kendall. Least favorite is Shiv. Our second to last episode of Succession, episode 9, is titled Church and State. This one we open up with protests taking place outside of ATN headquarters, but that's not the focus. We have Roman who's preparing a speech for his dad Logan for the funeral that will take place later in the day. Obviously, continuing on the theme of real world events being super serious. Obviously, a lot has happened during the time in between episodes. It only looks like it's been a couple of nights. But the outside events of the world, we saw the terrorist attack in season 1 not really affect Kendall when we were just focusing on Kendall getting to the meeting. Now it's Roman preparing for his speech while there's just massive protests in the world. So just goes to show how these worldly events don't really matter much in the scheme of the Roy hemisphere. So I always thought that's a cool aspect that they throw in there, just to really show you how they don't give a shit at all. The Roys don't give a shit at all about the real world events, about their people out there. They just care about the business. So yeah, Kendall is concerned about these protests only because Rava is going to head upstate with her kids, with their kids, and Kendall tries to keep them in a really shitty way. He like stands in front of the car, doesn't really understand what's going on, but Rava and Kendall's daughter obviously had the incident before with the Mencken supporter, so they want to get out of there. Probably the safer option. So yeah, this is not good. Things are de-escalating quickly. I believe this is like the last time we really hear about the protest, but I'm sure they continue on as the election hangs in the balance. Obviously, we're gonna head to the deal in the last episode, but the outside world events don't even matter. It's just the Roy world, and so yeah, that's where we set the stage for this episode. So Matson, of course, is on the phone with Shiv. He says the U.S. has only been a democracy for 50 years. Always goofing on the U.S., always goofing. I respect it. You know, as a European, that's what you have to do. Just shit on the United States. I feel like that's what they all do. He gets the bad news out now amidst the chaos, which is a smart move that Shiv recommended a couple episodes ago. Get the Indian news out there, get the news out there that they're faking numbers while the chaos with all the election stuff's happening. I feel like that's probably the best time you can just throw random news out there that no one will really care about because everyone's focusing on the election. Kendall, he's fighting really hard for his kids not to leave. Obviously, it's a very tough situation because it's Logan's funeral. Kendall wants his kids to be there for their grandsons, for their grandfather's funeral, but Rava obviously thinks that they are in danger, so she heads out. It's really tough back and forth. Kendall just can't seem to catch a break in this season. Not saying he's right, or not this season, just this whole show. Not saying he's right, but it just breaks my heart to see, he wants his kids to be there for the funeral. They're not going to be able to make it because there's just chaos ensuing on the streets. So just really tough back and forth there. A tough scene to watch for sure. We get our sibling car ride. Shiv, Roman, and Kendall. Shiv finally tells the brothers that she's pregnant. Roman makes his awkward, terrible sexual jokes, and I hate this dynamic. I know it's part of his character, but it just seems so weird to me that he and Shiv have this like banter back and forth about sex. I don't know. I'm not a fan of it. I know it's weird. It's supposed to be weird, but I don't know. I cringe and like can barely get through these scenes when they happen. The protesters, meanwhile, are banging on the windows. Obviously, the Roys had a heavy hand in declaring for Mencken. Most of the protests are anti-Mencken, so it's really interesting dynamic to watch play out there. More of the real world stuff not really affecting them. It's kind of just like, oh, they're being annoying when it's like, this whole thing happening in the country. So Kendall gets out of the car because they need to take an alternate route. Of course, he's talking to his girl Jess, main assistant, and turns out she's moving on to another position. At first, Kendall's really nice about it. He's like, you know what, that's really good for you. I am happy for you, if I may ask, like, why? And then he just gets worse and worse. It de-escalates, like, why the fuck would you leave? I did everything right for you, blah, blah, blah. It's always a tough conversation quitting, but Kendall just handles it really badly as a boss. As a boss, you have to be supportive. You got to be like, I wish we could keep you. I understand. Go kill it. Let's keep our communication, whatever. Obviously, this is why Jess was scared about telling him because this was just a bad conversation. Best job you could have done really for Jess. I don't know. I don't even know how you could. Maybe you just show up or just don't show up one day. I don't know. That'd probably be worse. So probably the best way it could have went, even though it was pretty shitty. So Greg, he bikes the funeral. That's just classic Greg. Of course, he doesn't get in any of the cars because he's sort of that forgotten sibling, forgotten cousin, and he wants his intro with Mencken, which is just a funny dynamic. Then they're all like, no, we're not going to give you an introduction to the president. You're irrelevant. But I respect Greg. I said it before. He does a great job politicking his way up. I mean, if you think, I said this before too, but if you think from season 1, the first scene we literally see of Greg, he's puking in a mascot and gets like thrown out of his own family's amusement park as a mascot. Like that's the lowest of lows. Now he's all the way up here. Yes, he still has some bad, he's not the like highest up, but his journey is really like, he probably has the most success overall in the whole show, going from where he starts to where he is now. So got to give that to Greg. Caroline is at the funeral, of course, and she sees Shiv, and she just immediately Kobe's that she's having a baby. I think this is a woman thing that you can do and just immediately predict that a woman's going to have a baby based off how they look. But yeah, Caroline's like, oh, so you're having a baby. yeah, and Shiv tells her, Caroline kind of missing out on most of her motherhood of Shiv, so it's just another awkward interaction between them, but mostly positive. So good for Caroline for calling it out, noticing immediately, and she's gonna have more grandkids. Shiv at this funeral, of course, pulls in Matson. He's there, obviously needs to be there for appearances. She schemes with him. She says that you need to have a U.S. CEO because that can help mend the bridge between Mencken. Obviously, Menken's supposed to veto the deal for Roman and Kendall, but she thinks if there's an idea of a U.S. CEO that's more Mencken style, obviously the right wing doesn't really trust outside the U.S. leadership. So having a U.S. center or U.S. center, but I don't know why I keep saying center, CEO is more palatable for Mencken and can help them bridge the deal rather than Kendall and Roman. And who does Shiv offer for this position but herself, of course? This is what she's been angling for this whole time. What? It's like, I thought I don't know. I'm not going to get too deep into it, but I feel like she needs more experience. Maybe that's just me being sexist, but I feel like of the siblings, she has the least amount of experience in the business. I don't know. But I think she would be a fine CEO. There have been the flaws that have been shown to us this whole time. Anyways, we'll talk about that more next episode. So Caroline sees Carrie in the crowd. She brings her along to meet Sally Ann, who is Caroline's Carrie, basically the mistress. And they all sit together at the front row with Marcia. Carrie, Caroline, and Sally Ann. That was a really cool scene. All of them getting together at Logan's funeral. I'm sure he would have loved to see them all four in a row sitting next to each other. I thought that was a really well done scene, and something that you weren't expecting to happen at all. Nice send off for Carrie and Marcia and Caroline, and that whole dynamic of the at the end of the day they got over it. They sit together and have a nice time. So that made my heart warm. That was a really good scene. So of course Ewan is here, and he's not going to let Logan just rest easily. He makes his way to speak, and they strictly have been told, Greg has been told to watch Ewan to make sure he doesn't get up on stage, but of course he's going to make his way up there. No one's really going to stop him. He's his brother. He finally tells us the sister story. She died from polio at a young age. Logan blamed himself because he was working outside of the house. And then after that heartwarming story, we get into Ewan saying he's rotten terrible things and just starts kind of going off the deep end, getting a little negative at the funeral. And yeah, I was like, how do you follow that up? That was just so bad for the dynamics and the optics. Not that, because it's just awkward. Like, funerals are supposed to be nice, a nice little send off for someone's end of a life. But Roman's gonna try. He gets up there, and yeah, immediately you can tell right away he's choking. Just a tough scene to watch. He's all hyped up. He thinks he's gonna be a kill at the speech, but when he finally gets up there, just words don't even come out. I'm sure we've all had a moment like that. Not at a funeral where there's like media and a million people watching, but when you get up in front of people, you have to talk, and then it doesn't even come out. So he opts out of the siblings, or he opts out of speaking about Logan. They all huddle together, and he's crying. Just a really tough scene to watch. He's just a complete wreck, and he starts asking if we can get Logan out of the casket. Obviously, missing his father. Just, yeah, brutal. Obviously, Roman, I've always believed, has missed Logan the most. So, yeah, it's really starting to show through here. I think this maybe has been a big realization for Roman that he's actually gone. A lot of the times you don't see a person day to day, and then you go to the funeral, and it's like, oh, all those feelings set in. It's like, this is the last time that, like, I'm going to be in this room with someone. It's really sad. So I think all those emotions are hitting at Roman at once. Some people view it another way, as we see later. They make fun of him for choking up there. I guess there is an aspect to that, but it's a tough scene. No one should really be made fun of, in my opinion, for not being able to give a eulogy at a funeral, and that's like one of the hardest things you have to do. So that happens. Kendall, in his place now, is speaking. He backs Ewan's sentiments at the beginning, saying yes, some of the things he said were right. He was rigid, whatever, but he also acted and built. I feel like Kendall's speech was pretty good, but he went way too granular and just started ranting at the end. Not a terrible speech. Ewan notably doesn't clap, but I think this does turn Ewan's sight to Kendall. I think he does respect Kendall the most. Obviously, in season 1, he's come a long way from that, so Kendall slowly earned Ewan's respect, but Ewan wasn't loving the follow-up speech because it basically ditched his, kind of put his speech down. So of course Shiv needs to get a word in as well now. Kind of makes sense that they're all going to talk. Just play it off as that's how that always was going to happen. So she mentions good memories, how he was hard on women. He did okay as a father. So just a fine speech from Shiv, just eulogizing Logan. R.I.P. Logan once again. We miss you, bro. Obviously one of the great characters in the show. So Hugo, after the speeches, tells Kendall about Shiv's plan to Mattson. Hugo's all over it today at the funeral. He was on his game. He pulled in the thing about India, that they released it. I think he told Kendall that too. So he's caught on this plan with Shiv. So Hugo is really locked in. He clocked in for Team Kendall for sure. So after the funeral's over, they do the procession where he's going to be buried. And it turns out Logan bought this $5 million place to be laid to rest. And it's a funny scene when they walk inside, and there's other things there for the siblings to potentially be laid to rest as well. It's like a whole mausoleum or whatever it's called. So they're like, hey, you want to be next to each other for life? And no, they joke about it. So yeah, of course, that's just the fuck you money that Logan had, spending $5 million on a thing in a graveyard to be laid to rest. So Roman at this burial is going to storm off. It's too much. This is just really getting to him. He's had a tough time. All the stuff I mentioned before, it's just even worse now. At the burial, Shiv takes this time to ask for reassurances with Frank and Carl about Logan. Was he actually a good guy? And they're like, yeah. And then she leaves, and he was like, he was fine. Logan definitely wasn't the easiest person to deal with. Obviously, business centric. Ultimately, to be as ruthless and cold as him and win in business, you just have to be that way. So I think that's just how it was. It's not really a question of was he a good guy or was he a bad guy. We don't really even need to know that. We just know he's a good businessman. So I don't know if that's probably wrestling with Shiv a lot because she obviously has higher standard of morals. I think ultimately Logan tried to do his best, but for his kids, but he was just not great. Anyways, rant over. So Kendall is putting in work with Hugo. They are going to tank the deal. The premium's too low. That's the narrative they're going with. They're assembling a team. Kendall's team. He got Hugo on board, and then next he gets Colin, Logan's former bodyguard. So Team Kendall is assembling here to make a run during the last couple episodes. So Kendall also goes and talks to Mencken. They scheme. Greg tries to get his intro to Mencken, but Kendall's like, get the fuck out of here. Connors pulls up now and is pitching some European alliance that he wants to be a part of. And then Shiv scoops Mencken to go meet Mattson. So finally we have this interaction between Mencken and Mattson. Not really like a huge, oh my god, they're talking moment, but just cool to see kind of those two paths cross. So during this conversation, Mattson gets a little nervous talking to Mencken, but Mencken is a bit receptive by the end of it. I think Mattson does a pretty good job in this conversation, slowly leading him on, and then mentioning how he's going to introduce Shiv as an American CEO to Mencken, and Mencken's like, I like Shiv, I like the idea of an American CEO. So that bond has been built. That could potentially be something to watch. It is something to watch, as this is the second to last episode. So while this is going on, the city is once again just slowly losing sanity as riots go on and get worse and worse. So still at the funeral, or after post-funeral now, we have Shiv drinking while pregnant in front of Tom. Come on, Shiv, like what? Why? I know you're not supposed to drink when you're pregnant. I don't think it's a death note, but in front of Tom, I guess it's like a fuck you to Tom, but it's like, what are we doing? Caroline enters this conversation. Tom apologizes for not being there for Shiv, or not being there at the funeral. And he says he was the first one in there with him after he died, which is true. Tom breaks down, all this stuff's hitting him now. And Shiv allows him to go back to their apartment. He hasn't slept in a while due to the election. He's been staying at a hotel. He says people know him there now and he doesn't like it. Sad scene for Tom. I've come to like Tom a lot, so this was a rough watch for me. He's always had the best for Shiv, but he finally gets to go back to his apartment, hang out. Hopefully things get a little better from here on out, and I think they will. So Mattson gets the yes from Mencken, and they will make a U.S. CEO work. So Kendall and Roman screwed again, shocker. Kendall is now negotiating with Roman to take on Shiv at the board meeting, and yeah, that's where we kind of set things off for the most part, heading into the last episode, besides the last little Roman arc. So videos are circulating about Roman crying with the company people, and they're sending texts and stuff to each other. Memes are being made, as this is what I mentioned before. This is pretty shitty. It's his dad's funeral. What's he supposed to get up there and preach to the choir and be all like good? Like, I think it's not. It's fine that he was crying. It was an emotional moment. At least he fucking cares, unlike his siblings that his dad died. I mean, I know they're all on rocky terms and stuff, but it's just brutal to watch. All this stuff happen to him, and we see everything just kind of hit Roman again. He walks out of the funeral to witness the protest in the street, and then he just starts getting into it with the protesters. He gets elbowed in the head, falls to the ground, and then someone offers him help up. He refuses it. So Roman's just in a bad way right now as we head into this last episode. And yeah, my thoughts after this one, I was like, where the hell do we go from here? I was shocked that this is the second to last episode of the whole show. I didn't know what was going to happen. Obviously, the last episode's crazy. But yeah, wow, just banger after banger in this last season. This might be the best season of the show. So that'll wrap up episode 9. My favorite of this episode, got to go to Roman. Finally, this is his one true moment of true, real emotion in the Roy family. Finally showing something here. Obviously, though, he's devastated about his dad, and his emotions come off the screen so well. I just felt so bad for him this episode, so I'm giving him my favorite. Least favorite could be Shiv for drinking, but I'm not going to be that petty. I'm going to give this to Ewan. I didn't dislike anyone too much this episode, so I'm going with Ewan. Just no need for bad mouthing at the funeral. I get Logan wasn't a great guy, but it just wasn't the time for it. So that'll wrap up episode 9. Favorite goes to Roman. Least favorite goes to Ewan.
And for the final episode, episode 10 of season 4, titled With Open Eyes, we get our conclusion to this 4-season show. Unfortunately, had to come to an end at some point. Was sad to have finished it, but glad to have watched it. So with that being said, let's dive into this episode. Starting it out, we have Kendall openly trying to rally the votes once again. He obviously makes a call to his good friend Stewie, and he thinks he has Roman on his side, but Roman, having just watched him walk into the protest last episode, we don't know where he is. He's still on the run, technically missing, so interesting to see that basically it's just a repeating cycle where Kendall's going to try and find the votes again. Obviously, we see what happens with that, but interesting how season 4 kind of parallels season 1 in a way. Meanwhile, on Shiv and Madison's side of things, they have a chat before the vote. She doesn't care what ends up happening to Tom either way, if he gets promoted, if he stays, if he gets fired. Caroline calls Shiv and says that Roman's here with her on the Caribbean vacation, and that, she wants her to come down because obviously, Roman and Shiv have a very close relationship. I believe Roman and Kendall do as well, but Caroline may just prefer Shiv, thinks Shiv would be more of a comfort to Roman, so that's something that makes sense in my mind. So Shiv potentially heading out to meet Roman. Shiv and Tom have a call. They are wondering, is there anything left there? Once you've said and done the worst things, you're kind of free. So that's their philosophy now. They obviously had the huge heated argument on the porch, or the balcony, but I don't know. I don't know if this is salvageable. I think it's always going to be kind of a weird relationship with the power dynamics going on. Shiv is asking him if he's down for a real relationship, and Tom says, I don't know. Everything that Tom said, he's just been unloading off his chest. I feel like Tom's side has been more valid. I mentioned that before. But Shiv now, she needs someone on her side, so she's going back to Tom. But I respect Tom for saying, I don't know. I don't know if this is the best thing for me, So that's the dynamic to watch moving forward as we play out through this last episode. Kendall gets word from Greg and Ratfucker Sam that Roman is with Caroline. Obviously, once Shiv knows, everyone knows immediately. So Kendall is now headed there as well, along with Shiv. So both siblings are going to head out to visit Roman. Kendall just keeps incessantly calling Stewie. Stewie apparently has something planned with Lawrence. I don't think that was ever really explained. Probably just like a backdoor deal that team screw Kendall over. But I don't know if this is the best way to contact Stewie, and also if Stewie's not answering your calls when he's supposed to be your good friend and you're just going to keep incessantly calling him, I don't know if I'd count on his vote, but I do think he does end up getting his vote. So Kendall arrives in the Caribbean with Shiv and Roman, and he just decides to lay into him right away. Obviously this is a very bad tactic to address your brother, and you're trying to get him to on this vote with you, but it's the Roys at this point. They're just gonna do whatever they do. Obviously, if someone's down, it doesn't matter. You can just shit on them openly, pretty much. Besides, like a select few scenes in the show, it doesn't really matter. No one cares about others' feelings. That's much as obvious. So not surprised to see that. Just thought this was a bad move. Meanwhile, on Tom and Greg's side of the world, Tom thinks that if he gets fired, then Greg is going to be fucked as well, which I don't think is necessarily true. I think Greg's made enough name for himself to continue on in the company without Tom, and he knows how to play like the positions on the teams on each side. But I guess that's an interesting note from Tom's perspective that he thinks Greg needs him. I don't know, that we've kind of had that dynamic throughout the whole, that Tom thinks Greg is mostly dependent on him, which at sometimes it's true, but I don't think it's true at all times. We've seen Greg make moves for himself without consulting Tom at all. He even goes against Tom with the papers and stuff. So I don't know if that's necessarily true to Tom. So Shiv, she's now negotiating with Kendall and Roman at the table because they're all together in the Caribbeans, and she tells Roman and Kendall that she has positions ready for them once the deal goes through, like the 100 once she gets in. And yeah, obviously they don't want to do that. The 100 just fell apart completely, instantly, mostly because you guys just couldn't ever be on the same page. Like, it was one episode, you bought Pierce, and then just were like a disaster. So I'm not surprised. Yeah, I just, I don't know. Just feel like could have done a better job than that. Maybe high. I don't know. I guess the best thing you can offer them is like high leadership positions. But at that point, it's like they're gonna try and take over they're gonna be running the company if the deal doesn't go through. So there's not really much you could offer them. Obviously, both of them want to be in the legacy and their dad's legacy and run the company. So yeah, this was just never really a negotiation that was going to work out, especially in Kendall's side of things. Anyways, Mattson and Tom now have a conversation. I thought Tom did a really good job representing himself. Tom is seen as a goof in the first couple seasons, but he's really gotten himself together. He's now playing every side. He's going for that throne too. And so Mattson has an issue with Shiv's tactics about the India information, which I don't know if that was, didn't he follow what she said to just get it out during the bad times and it worked? So I don't know what that was really. I think, if we are being honest, it's because she's a woman. That's why, and that's the patriarchy. That's one of Shiv's downfalls that she can't even control, is just being a woman in this like business. It's tough, and we've seen that play out in multiple ways for her. Opportunities to take over the company. He says he wants to fuck her a little bit, which is it's Tom, who's her husband. Weird dynamic right there, but that's just mentioning what I just mentioned again, because she's a woman. It's like there's this sexual thing going on. So I mean, I guess that is a bad thing, but if Shiv was a man, it wouldn't be the same. So you know what I'm saying. He thinks that she would fuck him too, and I guess at that, I mean, the scenes are just awkward. It's like her and Nate, so that just means they're gonna be together. But turns out he's actually considering Tom for CEO, and this was a fucking crazy whirlwind. Was not expecting this at all. Missed the signs on this, but I guess that's where we're at right now. He's considering Tom. So Greg is playing 5D chess at the bar, just translating the Swedish into English and eavesdropping. Always respect Greg and his moves. This might be one of the last big ones he pulls off, but he's not as dumb as he comes off. So Greg, the GOAT. Siblings are now at dinner with Caroline. Caroline wants everyone to get out, and she brings in, or everyone to get out of with like the business talk, and she brings in Peter and a friend to pitch them all in the business. But shortly after that, Greg is calling Kendall with information about Shiv not being the CEO named, that it's going to actually be Tom. So Greg uses this information to his benefit, gets in good with Kendall again, gives him the information. So yeah, this is news to everyone basically, including Shiv, which Kendall has to pull them aside of the Peter pitch, which was just a goofy scene. So he had it sourced multiple times that, yeah, Shiv, you're not going to be the CEO if Mattson wins the deal. And she's pissed. Yeah, she just found out. Sorry, nothing goes her way, but, there are faults that are her own fault. This specific case, Mattson was kind of a little sexist, I think, so not really sure what she could have done better in this situation, but, I just feel bad for Shiv in this moment because, she thought she was getting her time in the sun. Not going to happen. So what do? They get all back together and they're going to call Telus. They're saying their side is not looking great. They need a strong name for CEO and a coherent plan, which is the key word, coherent, because all three of them just want it for themselves and can't take a step back and want it for somebody else or run it with somebody else. It has to be one of them. So, I was pretty surprised with what they actually end up coming through, but let's get into it. So, right after this call, of course, they do have the argument once again about who should be the successor. Turns out Logan promised it to everyone. Who's surprised? I'm not. I'm sure at one point or another he was considering everyone. I've seen it watching the show that pretty much at one point or another, there was a time when I thought Roman was the best fit. There was a time when I thought Kendall was the best fit. There was a time when I thought Shiv was the best fit. So I'm not really surprised. It's, all three of them are pretty shitty candidates. So it's like at some point or another, he probably was like, yeah, this is probably better than the other two. But it turns out that doesn't mean anything because he promised it to all of them. They go person by person. Looking at Roman, they are using his funeral performance against him as something to dissuade him from becoming the thing because he can be talking the big roles. I guess that's kind of translatable, but as I mentioned in the last episode, I don't really think that that's like the biggest substance for his resume to push him for this position. I'm Team Kendall since day one. I think he is the most logical at this point. Shiv has just done too many deals and screwed herself over too much. I think Shiv's good in like an advisory role. I think she'd be a really good, I don't know, she'd be a decent leader, but not like the big person. Kendall at this point, it's all he's wanted. He's focused on this. He has the most experience in the business. I think Kendall would be the best fit for it. And yeah, they ended up agreeing on this basically. Kendall's going to go swimming, and then Roman and Shiv talk. Should it be Kendall? Roman says he could see it. Shiv says, how about we kill him? And then they anoint him as the leader when they swim out to him. So finally, the dust is settled. They're all going to name Kendall the leader, right? And that's going to be it. Happy succession ever after. Nope, this episode's not even halfway over yet. So they go inside. They do a meal fit for a king to Kendall. At this point, I thought they were just blowing smoke up his ass, but it seems like this is actually like a nice moment, goofing around with each other. Always my favorite scenes, even though this was like a little annoying just because they were like saying the same things over and over again. Shiv has to spit in the thing, of course, the like little drink they make to pour over his head. And yeah, it ends up dumping over on his head after he drinks it. Goofy scene, like kids again, that was good to see. That's probably like the last good moment of the siblings all together. And yeah, there's probably only like 5 of those in the entire series. So while that has all been happening, of course, our other sibling, Connor, has been hosting a great allocation for all the items in the apartment with a very complicated system. And he got his stickers in before. You put stickers on the thing, and then however many stickers you get, that's who gets the item. Of course, he did his before everyone came and got the best things, which is fair because he's probably the only one that actually deserves to get a lot of those things. And it turns out Connor took that position in Europe, and him and Willow are going to do long distance. I don't think that's going to be good for Connor's mental health. This is kind of the last scene we have of Connor. So no real ending to his story, but I don't know. I think him and Willow will crash and burn. That's my prediction, but it probably is never going to even matter. So everyone kind of is walking around the tour doing their own little thing, and then they stop at this virtual dinner with Logan. It's like a recording of him. The kids are enthralled with it. He's actually having a lot of fun. He's doing the loser list of the vice presidents and state or country capitals. This was a good Logan scene. He's actually having fun. He's laughing. And yeah, this gets to the kids. This is like a happy memory that they would have wanted to been there for. This is like right before he died. They're crying watching this. And yeah, this is a sad scene. This is what he could have been with them and been a good, funny person, whatever, but it was always business, and that's just how it was. That's just who he is. It couldn't change. It's just crying because they wish things could have gone better. So once again, Tom and Shiv have a conversation. Tom's awkward in it, but he eventually tells her it's going to be him, so good on him for being honest. Safe to say Shiv's done with him, I thought, at this point, because he stole her position. She's kind of the jealous type, if we're being honest. So she doesn't want to be with someone who has the position that she wanted, but obviously that may come into the equation later. So yeah, once this conversation happens and everything happens, shit hits the fan fast. So Tom confronts with Greg for spewing the information to Shiv, which is valid. They hit each other, classic Greg and Tom scene, just bashing each other. Mattson's freaking out at people on his phones to go get people to get the votes in the shareholder meeting. Carolina, Carolina is having an odd chat with Shiv. She says things have blown up. If she is in a leadership position, they should maybe get rid of Hugo, which that rivalry has been fun to watch throughout this whole last season with Carolina and Hugo. Kind of a funny subplot. Stewie arrives with the intention to join forces with the siblings. He does end up going through with that, so it's cool to see Stewie back on Kendall's side. You know, the friendship did end up mattering after all. Roman is, before this vote, is just crashing out. He's saying, "Why isn't it me?" And with Kendall, he starts crying, and yeah, this is the one scene I never got a lot of clarification on because with all due respect, I have watched a lot of videos about this ending. He has like a cut in his eye, and Kendall's like pushing his cut into the eye. I don't know if that was intentional. I think maybe it was because he's trying to prove that he's like better than him, and can take more pain and whatever. But that was like a really odd scene, and this whole last couple scenes of the episode really just turned me off on Kendall and just made me understand the whole point of the show, basically. So of course the meeting begins. Right back to Roman. In the first season, he could not say that he wanted to call Logan unfit, but this time he actually does say yes, and that means they finally won it. It's tied vote. It's all up to Shiv, right? It's the layup. It's easy. Of course, once I saw this, I knew that Shiv was going to fuck it up because why would they leave her last? It's all for the drama. Shiv, Kendall, and Roman leave the room. She gives the Logan fuck off. They're just confronting each other. Shiv is not sure what she wants to do for her future. It's seeming like she changed her mind. Shiv says that Kendall thinks he's the best, which is true. He's never really wavered in that. Although there are some, scenes where it seems like he doesn't really think he's the best and maybe wants to, I don't know. He says right here, if I don't get to do this, I might just die. This has been his whole life. This is like, we see it in the relationship with the dancer girl in season 3. All he talks about is dad, and all he talks about is being the leader of this business. It's the only thing he knows in his life. It's the only thing that really gives him joy, other than like maybe swimming. It's like this is what he has literally lived for. So this is just a really heartbreaking scene for Kendall, and he handles it poorly. Obviously, that's why he's be a terrible CEO. But it's just heartbreaking to see that he's not going to get his dream because Shiv is just tentative, and she brings up him killing someone. She says that he's exaggerating it, or he says that she's exaggerating it, and this is true, but you said in the season 3 finale that you did kill somebody, so they're going off your words, not what actually happened, and now you can't reverse backtrack on it. Now it seems like you're coming out defensive. Now he says it didn't even happen and he wasn't even there. Wow, he's awful at this. You got to be like bridged together. You can't be you can't be trying to deny and say nothing. Like, that's the worst thing you can do, is say that didn't even happen. Shiv is just increasingly growing stronger in her belief that this is not going to be a good ending. She says she can't even stomach Kendall. Now Roman, there's just a bunch of unnecessary jazz being thrown by all parties. Roman comes after Kendall's kids, saying that they're not really his kids because Rava had them with somebody else. Terrible siblings once again. In moments of stress, these things come out in them, and it's just like, these are terrible people, bro. And this just defines the show. Roman wraps it up pretty well. He says, "We are bullshit." Yeah, you guys are. As Logan said in season 4, episode 2, you are not serious people, guys. You stink, all of you. I'm done. Out on all of them. It's like, you guys can never get on the same page. You're all in it for your own reasons. You all have your own faults that you've failed to admit. You guys have just tried to grow up living in your dad's shadow, and he's better at this than all of you, as he's proved throughout this whole thing. He won every single time. You guys didn't really win anything. So it's like, at this point, I'm done with all of them. I'm all set. So the deal is done. They sell to Gojo. Shiv votes no, and I'm glad. Tom is actually gonna be the fucking CEO, and if I said that in season 1 or season 2 or even season 3, I'd be like, what? But all the events have led up perfectly to this moment. Just a great ending to the show. It doesn't always have to be happy. Our quote-unquote protagonists don't win, but none of them deserve to win. We saw that play out through the whole show, is explaining why they shouldn't win and they shouldn't be in this leadership position. So yeah, under Tom, Jerry's gonna be folded back in. Good, she's a good company man. Frank and Carl are dead, but quote unquote dead to the company, but they get to retire now. They finally don't have to deal with this drama bullshit. Probably get a nice payday, so they win as well. Mattson hates Greg, but Tom says, you know what, I got you. And I don't think Mattson actually hates Greg. I think Tom was just trying to let him down and then bring it back up type shit. I don't think Mattson hates Greg. They had a good time out when they were out together. So yeah, Greg wins, Tom wins, everyone else wins except the siblings, and that's how it should be. I think everyone in this series does their job to the best of their ability, besides the siblings who just are stink at it and all have very big faults. I mean, throughout, if you've watched all my reviews, I've pointed out the flaws that I've seen in everyone as I've seen them, and it's based on at this point. But it's like I get it. I completely understand the ending of the show. Perfect way to finish this up. So basically, we have all three siblings have some sort of one last final scene. Roman's is he gets a drink and doesn't really care. A lot of people are not a lot of people, but I watched this one video that said he's gonna become an alcoholic. Not sure if that's true. We haven't really seen him suffer through substance abuse. Maybe he will, though. It just seemed like to me he was kind of happy that this whole thing was over with. He doesn't really care now. He doesn't have to worry about it. He can just go live his life, which I don't know how that's gonna work, but Roman probably gets the happiest ending of the three siblings, granted that they're all terrible. Tom and Shiv reunite in the car. They have this half handhold that's just a beautiful wrapping on Shiv and Tom's whole relationship. Tom, who's always cared and always has wanted for Shiv to love him, holds his hand out, and Shiv just kind of half grabs it, and that's going to be their marriage now. Shiv's going to be stuck in the patriarchy once again under Tom. The thing she wanted to escape the most, she voted to keep. So it's like, you got to live with your consequences. She's gonna have to raise a kid with him. It's not gonna be that bad because it's Tom. It's gonna be fine. He's the CEO, but that's probably the last thing she wanted. As obviously she never really even looked out for him throughout this whole show. So that ending's perfect. And then last, my boy Kendall, just fucking horrible. He walks to the park with Colin. Just sits on the bench and looks out at the ocean, and that's how we wrap the show, man. Beautifully done, great ending. No notes really, just wow, stunning. I'm so glad to have watched the show. Amazing ending, bravo, bravo, bravo. None of the kids deserve to win, so I'm glad to see that they didn't. And it makes all the sense in the world to me now. I've come full circle. Well, not really, because I wanted Team Kendall, but there's just so many obvious things. So last episode, we do have to give a favorite and a least favorite. Favorite got to be Tom. He's the only killer in the show, really. We've seen that through everything. He's the only one who realizes that Logan wins at all times, and he needs to follow that way. He low-key has the least amount of faults of all the siblings, and he ended in the best position, so it's got to be Tom. Least favorite, I didn't like the way Kendall was speaking to Shiv, but I'm going to give it to Shiv for her overall actions this episode. She was under the impression that she would eventually win, but I guess that was wrong. Or no, I was under the impression that she would eventually win, and that was wrong. Having watched Twitter in 2023, just remembering from what I saw, I thought Shiv won and that she was the one who ended up being the successor. Wrong, completely wrong, and I'm glad, because I think of everyone I've seen I think Shiv's flaws are the worst. And that's not me trying to be sexist or anything. That's just me being honest. I think Roman's fucked in the head, but if you put the right people around him, they can help him kind of rally him in, and keep him focused. Kendall is a little bit self-centered, yes, but if you, I don't know, he actually has the most experience in the business. He actually knows what he's doing. Shiv has no experience in the business. Every time someone doesn't tell her something, she freaks out. She always tries to make these deals, never really ends up winning. Obviously, none of them really end up winning, but I was just fed up with Shiv, and this ending just was perfect. She did all the fighting and all the bullshit, backstabbing her brothers, trying to be the best, just to end up like the rest of them, and she didn't want to end up being the side mom to the CEO's kid with probably little involvement in the business, but now she ends up in the worst ending for her. It's sad but true, but the siblings can just never get along well enough. That was basically the whole fucking theme of the show. So, finally, months later, we are done with Succession. Took my time, took my notes. It's been a crazy ride. Thank you guys so much for watching, tuning in, and watching all these long reviews. This one will be the longest. Just had more to say in the last season. You know how it is. Don't turn off the subscription and the likes and comments yet. We have one more Succession video. I already recorded it. Succession character tier list with my friend. So we will be going through each character, putting them on a tier list. May have some controversial opinions, especially about the siblings. So stay on the lookout for that. Should drop shortly after this one's dropping. And yeah, looking to get into more shows in the future. So if you guys have any recommendations for shows, I heard Industry's good. I have other stuff on my list I need to get to first, but I will be trying to cover more shows in the channel as time goes on. Going to be covering Penguin Live, Survivor Live, and then have some other things cooked up that I need to catch up on to release for the channel. So thank you guys so much for sticking along, and yeah, stay tuned for Succession tier list. Thank you for being along with me on this whole journey. You got to see my raw reactions through 5 episodes at a time, and I'm so happy to have done this. It really made me feel like I was paying more attention to the show and locked in and taking notes and stuff. So thank you guys for watching. Until next time, be easy.